this generation, it's the internet that's bringing them up. So they don't have that relationship with parents like we had. You sit down with your parent. Okay, we didn't really sit down and talk about things, but most parents now can sit down and talk to their children about sex and stuff like that. So most of them don't even do that. Then they're just on internet. So the internet is bringing them, and then they have that stinking attitude because of what they're seeing on the internet.
But to be honest, I don't think many African parents even have that talk with their parents. Like, we never had talked about sex, really. Like, for me, because I felt like at my, even though not social media, I felt that's hella awkward. Like, what the hell? Like, dad, da da da. But as I said, I lived by myself by the time I was 17.
Yeah.
So I would, for example, but I was learning of people who were cool, for example, when I got into Sweden. And so, like, I'm learning more as a matter of that. But why? Yeah, Africans don't really do that.
And having said that, we're just blessed that, you know, you left home when you're 17, very vulnerable. 17 is under minor, like very vulnerable. But God is amazing. You went out there, the way you held yourself, the way you lived with people, and we never spoke to you about things like that. I think it's just now we can talk about it, I guess, but at one stage, I mean, because you were more out with Ian, and I think for us African parents, it's just more like, oh, you know, right now you go out with a girl, she falls pregnant, child support will be chasing you, you've not enjoyed your money. So that's what we think about, and that's what Dad was saying at Letitia's. That's why do we Africans just think about pregnancy? We don't think about anything else.
Imagine.
Yeah, and that's the first thing everyone thinks about. Oh, you make a girl pregnant, they'll be chasing you in Australia. You know, it's not easy. That is what we're just thinking about. Of course, you should pay child support because that is the child. But are you ready to do that?
Hey, I got a question for you. Are you smart? Are you a visionary? Well, the fact that you are watching this podcast is a good thing. I got something to tell you. I know time is the most valuable asset, so I'm going to get straight to the point. Here at the Rubasha Family Podcast, we've been focused on consistent output, getting amazing and quality content out to the people who come and support. How can we add value to people's lives? Now, you could be a small business owner or entrepreneur who wants to be able to expand your visibility, get your product or service in front of as many people as possible. The day and age that we're in, social media, podcasts, the fact that they're growing so much on YouTube. YouTube is allocating more budget into the podcast section in media. Why can't you be smart? Why can't you get ahead of the competitors and put your advertisements, put your visibility, your brand in front of as many people as possible? You could actually be one of the ones who is really smart in order to take advantage of this opportunity and put your ads in one of our videos at our lower prices as they are now compared to what they will be as our audience continues to grow and expand as much as we're consistent. So if you're really interested in having an advertisement space or brand visibility at the Rubasha Family Podcast, link is in the description. Send us an email and let's talk. Back to the video.
Do you wanna? Because that's what I used to say. You guys love Nike. Nike's at $300. You like nice shirts, clothes. So when you have a child, you can't buy those Nikes because the child needs 300. The child needs like 200. So you're left with 100. So that is what we used to talk about. But we generally actually don't talk about that.
I think that's something that it's not really talked about. Like, but you're right. Like, it's crazy. I did leave when I was 17, but like the positive for me was, and maybe you guys had faith in that. I don't know really, but when I went overseas, because I could have maybe had that and started chasing women, but because I was just so focused on what I was doing.
That was
my thing. I was so focused.
That is why
I promise you, let a woman. You guys were confident.
We saw you from the time you were 3 years old playing football, the passion, the madness. I remember even in the house, you kicking, just standing and kicking my stools, and I'm like, ew! You're imagining it's a ball.
I was crazy.
I was confident. You reminded me so much of my father. That's one part of my father. I knew you'd never trip. I had so much confidence. You'd never trip. Because that was your dream. Like, it was everything you did, Eve. You ate soccer, you breathed, your air, whatever you were breathing was soccer.
Football.
You ate soccer. In school it was soccer. I remember even when you went to high school, the school was for rugby union, was it? But you twisted their minds and they started following football.
Yeah.
So that is how I know you were.
I was always in my own world.
Yeah, you were always in your own. You're never carried away. Or because people are playing rugby, you go and play rugby. You were like, no, It's about football.
But you know what though, like, I remember you used to, Eve, I remember one time you told me, Eve, I saw a boy in the newspaper, he met a woman and he was a good football player and it distracted him. Imagine, you told me. So I don't know if also that played in my subconscious mind too.
Yeah.
It could have, but I was still always so like when I was traveling, like it never, okay, yes, women would now start to come to me and stuff like that, but I was just so into this. It's like, I have training at 9 in the morning, I have training at 5 p.m. I can never let nothing come in between that. And I think it put me at an advantage because women, it got to a point as I got older and matured, like you said, play hard to get, women would chase me.
No, which was good because you were into it, yes. And I remember that story because there was this boy who was a very good soccer player. He actually received, those days we used to use mails, not emails. He received a mail to go and play somewhere in Europe. And she just distracted and convinced him, and actually she didn't give him the mail or something like that. She received the mail. Yeah, she hid it.